This is gonna be interesting for sure.
Good.
Like I'm excited. You are the second person who's wanted to do the like off-camera thing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So like for anybody watching, we have a second like mystery guest, and yeah, this is just gonna be like, I don't even know where to start. That's the thing. Like I've kind of ran through a couple scenarios in my head of like where the fuck I'm gonna start type thing, you know what I mean? But I mean, this is all gonna be like some free ball type thing, but
sounds great.
Pretty much bottom line is you are a psychologist.
Correct.
And like that title alone definitely piques my interest in somebody that I would want to come on the podcast. And yeah, I mean, I know nothing about your life or like who you are, but like regardless, you are a psychologist, and I said, fuck it, like why not bring somebody on that's like, I guess perfect. Are you like a doctor or something?
Yeah, I
like,
have my PhD, yeah.
No way, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Like, can I ask some like simple kind of like background questions before like I just like dive down? Okay. Where did you go to school, and how long does it even take to become a psychologist?
Yeah, good question. So I am originally from Missouri. I went to undergrad in Missouri, small private school, and then I basically took off 2 years after undergrad before trying to figure out what I wanted to do. Wasn't quite sure what path I was going to go on. Thought about law school, thought about different types of psychology programs, and then eventually figured I should go get my doctorate. So I went to Colorado State University, and I did their master's to PhD program, which is 5 years. That's the quickest amount of time you can get your doctorate, but a lot of people take like 6 to 7 years in order to finish up both their master's and their doctorate.
You were able to do it in 5 years?
Yeah.
Why? Were you just grinding pedal to the floor the entire time?
Full time, yep.
Really?
Yeah, full time.
What made you want to do the 5-year program instead of like the 6 to 7?
Well, I was really fortunate in that the program I went to was fully funded, and so it allowed me to attend full time while getting a stipend for my tuition. And then as part of that, you have various assignments that you can work that help you pay, basically pays for your education. So I was really fortunate that I didn't have to take out a massive amount of student loans and to do it. But it was a very small cohort. There were only 5 of us in my class.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
Okay, that's crazy. And then how did you end up in San Luis Obispo County?
Yeah, so the last part of your training is a year-long internship. The best comparison is really like the med school residency process. So you apply to internship sites all over the country. You can kind of decide if you want to start specializing or go into a certain area. So I applied all over the place, flew all over the country for a couple months, did a bunch of interviews, and ended up matching out here at Atascadero State Hospital for my internship. So that's what brought me out to California.
And I'm assuming you're past the internship?
Yes.
Okay.
So I finished up the internship, and then I went back to Colorado for about 6 months, and then realized the grass isn't always greener, and came back to SLO, came back to the hospital, and took a psychologist position at the hospital.
And then how long have you been in SLO County?
I think it's about 6.5 years now.
Okay.
Yeah,
yeah.
Since I came back.
You've made like friends, hobbies, like you found like your niche, things to do and whatnot. Yeah. Okay, heck yeah. And then what are you're it's called having a doctorate in psychology. Is that what it's called?
Yeah.
Okay, so you're a psychologist. You also said you are a teacher. Mm-hmm. Can you say anything about that?
Yeah, so...
Like you teach psychology for like college students?
I do.
How's that?
So I started in grad school teaching a forensic psychology course at Colorado State University. And so ever since I left Colorado State, I've been teaching that course every fall, spring, and summer as a forensic psych course online. And for the last 2 years, maybe a little bit longer now, almost 3. I've been teaching at Cal Poly. I've been teaching the same forensic psychology course in person at Cal Poly. And just recently I've picked up a graduate course at Cal Poly in their master's program.
And then what made me, like, I meet people, right? Like, that kind of sounds douchey to say, like, oh, like, I meet people. No, you meet way more people than I do, but, like, meeting people for, like, anybody out there, like, something that piqued my interest, like, right when I met you were, like, you know, small talk, yada, 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 like, you pretty much, like, you, I don't know if you said or, like, I said, but, like, you have 3 jobs. When I heard that, I definitely was like, dang, like, I need to, like, get this person to come on the podcast sometime. That's, like, when someone has 3 jobs, there's much more going on. Like, it's like it's dope to hear that with my ears, because usually, like, the people that I know that have at least 2 jobs, 3 job area,
Mm-hmm.
they're grinders, they're hustlers, they're making money. Like, for example, this one guy, shout out Jay Riley, but I interviewed this one guy maybe like a month ago or something, and he was like, yeah, like, I wanted this $500 mic because he, like, records music and whatnot. And then he was just like, I didn't let that money come out of, like, the main job that I work Monday through Friday. He, like, picked up some Uber shifts and, like, paid for a $500 microphone, just, like, doing, like, a side hustle. So, like, he, like, that's like having 2 to 3 jobs type things. Like, why do you want to be a psychologist, work at the hospital as doing the forensic
psych, yeah.
Forensic studies, and, like, be a teacher at the same time. Like, you're literally working 3 different things. How do you have time to do you? How do you have time to, like, live your life? And like I'm assuming, I mean, you've, like, I feel like you're busy, right?
Yeah.
Like, how's that go? Like, explain that whole thing.
Well, it's funny because I actually have the 4th position, which is private practice. So I've got my job at the state hospital, but then I still have private practice where I see clients on my day off at the hospital. But it takes very good organization, that's for sure. But I think I love what I do. And I think that being passionate about it, and that each one of the things I'm doing challenges me in a different way, makes it a lot easier to get through the times where I'm exhausted or it feels like a grind. Because in the back of my head, I know that I'm super fortunate to even have the positions that I have, and to be able to enjoy, you know, after a day of work at the hospital, to go to a campus and teach college students about a subject that I love is pretty awesome. So no matter how tired I am, I just get re-energized during that time. And I don't know if that would be the case if I was teaching something that I didn't love, or if I was doing a bunch of things I wasn't passionate about. So I think for me, that's it. One of the biggest pieces of just continuing to grind and is that I really enjoy it.
Are you working 6 days a week, 7 days a week, 5 days a week?
Depends on the week.
Certain days?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, things definitely overlap. Most weeks I at least work 5, sometimes work on the weekends. There are some weeks where I don't time manage well and end up working all 7 days. But I definitely make sure to take vacations. I'll usually set a goal off of, like, really wanting to travel somewhere, and so I'll set a chunk of time, and that keeps me motivated to really work hard and stay up to date on things, because I know I get to go take a week off and go to Hawaii or go somewhere really cool and just explore and not have to think about anything.
I definitely feel I'm, like, 1000% brainwashed by money, like, making money, like, for me, and it's shitty to say, like, that's such a materialistic thing to say, and, like having the goal of, like, making money, like, just being in the rat race at the end of the day, like, that's shitty, you know what I mean? Like, you're really not in it for the money. Like you literally, like, instead of doing your 3 to 4 things, why don't you just do 1 or 2?
That's
or
a
do
good
you
question.
also enjoy making that extra additional income?
Definitely enjoy making that additional income. I can't even pretend that that's not part of it. I think there always has been a piece of me that's always, especially as a female, really strive to be financially independent, especially coming from the Midwest and seeing some of the culture of really just wanting to be like, I don't need anybody else to support me. I can support myself and I can be independent. I can buy my own house. I can buy my own car. And so I think that that's always really pushed me to make sure if I'm doing something and it's taking up a lot of my time, that it's financially worth my time. So that has always sort of been a drive that's there as well. And of course once you start to get financial independence, it's really, really nice. It's really, really nice to be able to take a vacation and not stress about, having to do the cheapest version of the vacation. And living in California is really expensive. So there's that piece too of just even affording to survive out here requires quite a bit of money.
Do you own a house?
I do.
You have to pay property tax,
yeah,
which is hella expensive,
it's
like super
so
expensive.
Insane, yeah.
And then, I mean, I guess this is, I think this might be where things might take a dive.
Okay.
And and like I said, like I'm like so all over the place right now, like trying to, I guess like trying to be structured, but like I feel like that's like obviously hard to do, but and I'm down to take a dive. This is gonna be interesting, but I can even like I'll give you like a theory that I have and whatnot, and like I have a lot of things to bring up during this interview, but there is in my opinion, but there's a major thing happening in society right now, and it's not good, and it has to do with the amount of depressed people. Like I think that's like a huge thing. Yeah. Like it's like a crazy thing. Like literally like before, and like to pay like contribute, I did want to read one of my it's just like a page pretty much, but I wanted to read you. I made a magazine. Yeah. It's not out yet. I'm working, it's done. I gave like 10 copies to some people. I didn't get like great, amazing reviews. Like there was some confusion in it. So I actually brought over 2 people. They read the stories 1 through 10, all different days, but like 2 on Monday, and then someone would come over again and read another one on Wednesday, and then I just explained each story why I wrote it. Yeah. But that will be coming out this year and like its own like playlist thing on my channel. But the last story, I had one really good friend and then one like cool acquaintance, and they both killed themselves recently. So like I wanted to include that in the magazine. You know, like all like authors have like the before you start the story in loving memory of. So like I wanted to do one of those, but like the final story. There is a lot of depressed people that kill themselves every day and are just like, whether they know it or not, are depressed. Like you're a psychologist. Do you deal with people that are depressed, or are you, cause like doing psychology, there's a ton of different fields. There's like the marriage fields, there's the depression field, there's the forensics field. Like what do you know about depression? Do you think there's a problem with depression right now? Like give me some information on depression.
Absolutely. I think that It's hard to know if depression is worse now than it ever was, but it is definitely a problem, if that makes sense. It's always hard to know if it appears something is increasing because our flow of information is so much greater. Our ability to know people's stories and know what's going on with people. It's definitely more acceptable to talk about mental illness now. So it's hard to know what the rates is really all I'm trying to say, if it's any different. But it's definitely a problem, and it's really significant, especially for teenagers and young adults, and the number of suicides that are happening as a result of that depression. It's hard to know. I mean, in all the stuff that I've seen, it's really hard to pinpoint why depression rates are so high. I think part of it depends on where you live and what some of those pressures are. I know that, in the Bay Area, some of it has to do, especially with adolescents, is academic pressure. And all the pressure that's put on them to get good grades and, succeed and go to the best colleges and, basically overextending themselves and not enjoying, being a kid and doing anything aside from that. I know that social media is a huge problem for people, and the comparison that people make of themselves to other people. There are just a lot of reasons. It's hard to really know why it is so bad, but it's definitely a problem.
I think it just feels like I think life's really hard to live. Yeah. I really think life is 1000% extremely hard to live. And on all, I feel like I live a very easy life compared to fucking a ton of people that are out there legit struggling on the streets and whatnot. But it feels like there's not enough love and just programs and whatnot that help people. The thing, there's so many dumb laws out there that people say weed's legal. You can't take a joint right now, go downtown slow and walk through the street. You will go to jail or some shit, or get fined, and that shit stays on your record. There's this one person that has to register as a felon because in Oklahoma in 1990 they had marijuana in their vehicle, and now that person goes through their entire life and it's extremely difficult for them to get a job because of some, in my opinion, stupid fucking law. And there's a million of these stupid laws out there, and I think the system in general just really keeps people down, and it's extremely expensive to go see people. It's extremely expensive to go see specialists. The whole thing with receiving medicine, who even knows that that's the right answer? I don't know. I think there's so much hatred and not enough acceptance in society, and you just have a ton of people that literally are just kind of going day by day, just extremely sad and depressed. And I feel I talk to some of these people, that come on the podcast and whatnot, or just through social media and stuff. And it's just, I think it's something that I wanted to bring up with a psychologist, just because I guess you're more of a professional person, you know what I mean? But I feel like I could come up with 10 things that could really boost society, but obviously I can't do that because I would need hundreds of millions of dollars, and I would need power, and I would need a very large audience to make this shit happen. But Well, do you have anything to say or add on to that?
I agree with what you're saying. I think there's so many things that are really, really frustrating, why we can't come together and really push for collective change that, brings everyone up, as opposed to continuing to have such divisiveness that really keeps some people up and really, really pushes other people down and keeps them from living productive, successful lives. As being a forensic psychologist, I see, how the system works a lot, and it is very, very dysfunctional. What you were saying is entirely right. I mean, felonies, once you have one, it impacts you for the rest of your life. There is no mechanism for doing your time and getting a clean start. And that destroys a lot of people's lives. Obviously, there are people that do bad things in life, but there are also people that, make mistakes and do their time. And, it's arguable whether that should follow them for the rest of their lives.
You have to be so extremely lucky to make it into a success, like making your life into something successful. You have to be so fucking lucky just because there's so much like shit going on that can happen at any given second. I think that's crazy. You have to be fortunate. You have to, I was fortunate enough to come from a, middle class family and that valued education and really pushed me to play sports growing up and pushed me to do well academically and then pushed me to go to college. And, I was really fortunate that was the environment that I grew up in, and those were the privileges that I had. Have you ever done psychedelic mushrooms?
I have not.
Are you serious?
Yeah. I've never done them. They've actually terrified me.
They terrify you?
Yeah, because everyone
You're
that's ever told me about them is like, you can ruin your trip, right? Like that if you're like not with the right people or if you're like not in the right headspace, that's what everyone's always told me that's done them. And so I've just always been terrified that because I'm a naturally anxious person, I would like send myself into a bad trip.
Before you die, can you promise me that you will try them?
Yeah, I'll figure it out.
Okay, I'm not joking, but I think if everybody were to receive a massage and microdosing mushrooms became more of like a weekly thing, I really think there would be so much like peace in the world. Like if everybody got a fucking massage every day for like one, I mean that's obviously like a stretch, like that's just kind of like a fun little thing to throw in there. Massages are fire, but like
massages are amazing. I have had that.
You can't. Okay, if you wake up and someone gives you a massage in the morning, you're not gonna be a fucking asshole.
No.
I promise you will not. You're gonna be like walking around like so relaxed, like yo, like what up, guys? You know, like it's. And then microdosing psychedelic mushrooms, it makes you are engaging with different pieces and elements of your brain that you had no idea ever existed. Yeah. I'm not joking.
I believe you.
I'm not joking.
I don't question that at all.
I'm not joking at all. It is something, like, I'm not saying do them every day. I'm not saying do them in large amounts. And for sure, if you have, like, the lineage of being, what's it called, like, susceptible to, like, I know if like schizophrenia or like Alzheimer's, like things like that, if that like everybody in your family has it, I know you're not supposed to take like acid or mushrooms. But
any family history of psychotic disorders, don't do it.
Well, even if you have a little bit, I think you'll be fine.
Probably be fine.
Hopefully, but it does something to you, and there's so many studies going on right now that are like mushrooms can be used to cure trauma and depression.
Yeah, I know.
That's 1,000% true. I'm not even joking. And
no, there are lots of studies that are going on that are looking at MDMA, they're looking at ketamine, they're looking at psychedelic mushrooms. There's lots of cool research out there. The problem is that it's so hard to really fully fund that research or get that research done because of the fact that they're still illegal drugs.
And that's just kind of what I was saying earlier with the system being so, I guess, corrupt. But obviously that sounds like a conspiracy theory. I'm not saying I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but I know I need to be logical for this interview, you know what I mean? But like mushrooms should for sure be legal, and tell me why this news is not on the research every single, or like why isn't this on the news? You know what I mean? Like we should be able to click on the TV and like this should be happening. Like, there should be so much education going on about this. And I really think mushrooms that grow naturally in the grounds from this planet Earth, they should be used way more often than they are.
Yeah.
Like right now, it's just like, oh, like it's a fun party drug or whatever. No, it's honestly much more than that. Like we're like, you know, like for real though, like why isn't it on the news? People don't want to talk about it.
Well, I just don't think the research is there yet. I think it's at such an introductory phase because of the difficulty in having like a bigger scale research that can be conducted because it's legal to do so. So I think that is one of the biggest reasons. It's really a roadblock. It's just like we don't have, even though marijuana is legal now, like we still really don't have much research, like legitimate research on marijuana use. It's mostly made on just like, you know, people that self-report that they used it and then their self-report of, you know, things that they've experienced. We can't really conduct true experiments. But it's moving in the right direction. But I think that's my opinion as to why it's probably not a bigger story is because it's still so new and it's still unclear how much you can generalize the results of those studies to a much broader scale. Because there are going to be, you know, certain considerations that you have to take. There are going to be certain people that maybe their bodies don't respond the same way, and you got to kind of, to be responsible, you have to sort of identify that before you just put something out, right? And then maybe, you know, certain types of people with a certain predisposition then suffer some really bad side effects, or, you know, it harms them in some way. Those are, of course, like important things that you have to consider with any kind of research like that you put out.
And that's an extremely fair counter argument. And what I have to go against that is you ingrain this, like the way you have a very high functioning society is you change the current education system. I'm not saying don't teach science and math and like basic algebra and English and social, still teach all of that, but there also needs to be something that's like, this is how you use drugs. This is what drugs do to you. This is what drugs do to your mind, your body, your soul. Let's talk about depression today for the next 6 weeks, and like literally like have that go on from fucking, I don't know when kids could start learning about that type of stuff, maybe like 3rd grade or something. Like there's fucking 3rd graders that smoke weed for sure. Like, so
you're saying to do the opposite of the DARE program?
1,000%. Yes. 1,010%.
Well, we now know that was
drugs.
Terrible.
Everybody does drugs. Everybody does fucking drugs.
I still have my DARE shirt from junior high.
Are you serious?
Yeah, I remember like the DARE officers coming in, and we had no idea what they were talking about. It was, you know, it's kind of funny to think about now, and now all the research tells us obviously those programs did not work. It's not the right way to approach educating. Well, the approach wasn't educating, it was to just scare people. So yeah, that's obviously not a good way to go about it.
When was the last time you wore the DARE shirt?
I wear it to sleep sometimes.
Oh, for real?
Yeah, I only wear it at home. I don't wear it in public.
Okay.
Because I'm not trying to promote the DARE program, but it's just like
a garment.
This super soft T-shirt that I have that it kind of makes me smile whenever I see it about how ridiculous it is.
Because if you normalize helping people and growing society and like incorporating drug use, not fucking meth and heroin, but like small amounts of psychedelic mushrooms, and you start expanding the youth, and yeah, if you just put that in the education system and you do it the right way and you do it with dope people teaching it, you will have a better society that's more like arms embracing and just like,
well, what you're talking
more
about,
natural, just better. You will have better fucking people if you just teach all about this type of stuff. And obviously there's other things that I don't want to go on a crazy rabbit hole of like how do you change society, but like I mean
what you're talking about is analogous to sex education, right? Like that eventually that eventually, like, it was just like abstinence, like, which is basically the same as the DARE programs, but Well, we've learned over time that if you actually teach people about sex and you teach them how to have protected sex and you teach them about how to get find the resources that they need, that people are more responsible about it.
This is he doesn't live here, but this is Julian. He's a good friend of ours. And then this is Roxanne.
Hi.
Nice to meet you, Julian.
She's a doctor.
Oh,
Yeah,
really? Awesome.
That's me.
What kind of doctor are you?
I'm a forensic psychologist.
Oh, that's what my dad does.
Oh, nice.
He's got a he's got a PhD in forensic psychology as well.
Nice. What's your dad's name?
I think you were talking last.
Yeah.
You were talking...
I was just saying what you were talking about is really analogous to sex education and how, over time we've realized that actually educating kids and adolescents about sex, how to have, protected sex, smart sex, how to find resources, actually has a lot better outcomes than expecting them to be abstinent. So that's what I compare your argument to, is there is something to be said for educating people and giving them all of the information to make decisions for themselves.
And then, do you watch the news?
Not often, because it's the I like to have more neutral sources as opposed to really sensationalized.
Yeah.
So I prefer to try to read my news than necessarily watch it, because a lot of the news programs are, spinning headlines, and I'm like, what's the main point here?
I feel like this will kind of tie into the last little thing I wanted to talk about on this subject, but I was high as heck on marijuana.
Yeah.
On marijuana. Recently, like a couple weeks ago, and I was with my friends, and they had the news on, and I shit you not, I had not sat down and viewed the news channel for the full episode or whatever for 30 minutes.
Yeah.
I've walked into someone's house before, the news is on, I looked at it for 10 seconds, walked away type thing. But in terms of being high, and have you ever smoked marijuana?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you actively do it?
I do occasionally, but I prefer to eat gummies as opposed to smoke. I've never been a big smoker.
Okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was... Yeah, so you know how you get, when you're high, you're, a little, hyper aware, you're, more engaged with the environment, what you're listening to sounds different, you're high.
Yeah.
I listened to the news for a solid 30 minutes, watching this shit with my friends, and I have not done this for 10 to 15 years. I just don't watch the news, I fucking hate it. And I'm listening to the news and I'm watching it, and I'm just this is fucking horrible.
Yeah.
It's... I was laughing, and the first thing that came on was some slingshot serial shooter that was slinging these lead balls at these glass windows all across some big city or some shit, and I immediately started laughing. I was just high, and I was just I was just laughing so hard. Literally 10 seconds later, after that happens, it's and then boom, onto a mass shooting.
Yeah.
And there's this lady literally just stoic, explaining what just happened, and this mass shooter walked into, I think it was a grocery store, and she said that she saw this guy shooting these people in the head.
Yeah.
And that shit's fucked up, but the point I'm trying to make is the new, after listening to the news stories, the news for 30 minutes, I felt my heart was kind of pounding. I had anxiety all of a sudden, actual anxiety. I was just I can't fall asleep now, and just almost kind of sweating, because the slingshot thing was really funny, and then it just hits you mass shooter, all these people just died in a grocery store. And then my friend started talking about we don't understand the true studies of blue lights from like your screen, like the physiological blue light studies of like what a screen can do to you. And I'm like watching the news, he's saying that, and I'm like feeling the anxiety from what the news is saying. And what I'm saying, this is like that type of news that's on either side, like whatever side you're on. And I hate saying side. I think everyone should be on the same side, but that shit's like unbiased. That's just like news information. That's not like the right side or the left side or whatever, you know what I mean? But he's saying that shit about the blue lights. I'm hearing this crazy stuff happen on the news. I'm like high, like literally just, oh my God, like this is horrible type thing. And then I'm kind of putting two and two together, and I'm like, dude, this is so related to just what people, because I know people that watch the news every single day for like hours, and I'm like, this has something to do with fucking depression, whether they know it or not. Listening to that negative stuff, and I looked at him and I was just like, I guess this is fucking reality. Yeah. Which is sad. Yeah. You know what I mean? That has something to do, I bet you, this is kind of where that, I said theory, like a little earlier, like, my theory is the blue light from the screen and the news and being on your phone all day, we don't understand the devastating effects from that, and then being paired with this crazy negative information that no human should ever have to listen to, because it's so like deep, it's so hardcore, it's so gruesome, these mass shootings that feel like they happen every fucking day. That, like, listening to that shit for hours on end, which a ton of people, I bet you tens of millions of people across the world listen to the news every single day. Absolutely. For 15 minutes, 30 minutes, 3 hours, you name it. Yeah. I bet you that has something to do with depression. Yeah. A subconscious depression, though.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? Like, you don't understand those effects of, like, just listening to that shit. It's like a form of brainwashing, but, like, do you see what I'm saying?
Absolutely. Okay. I totally agree with you.
Okay.
It's incredibly toxic, and it's, you know, I actually over the last couple of years have had this like really push-pull with this exact topic, because to me being educated is really important. Like, I want to be aware of things, and I don't ever want to be the type of person that just turns a blind eye to something because it's hard, or you know, my life would be easier by not paying attention to it. At the same time, you cannot ingest that all day, every day. Like, you can't. Like, it's just not psychologically healthy. Like, there's no way to not feel residual stress and anxiety and anger and, you know, that kind of stuff with it. So it's all about finding balance. And I don't think most people even think about it. So they probably don't have much balance. But there is so much negativity out there. So much negativity. And especially when you really get, you know, like you were saying, to one side or another, and you have really, really focused, like, divisive messaging and, you know, just sensationalized messaging. It's just designed to heighten you up. It's designed to get you worked up and angry and, you know, up in arms about something.
How are you doing on time?
Good.
You're doing good?
Yeah.
Okay. Let me read you a story really fast, and then I feel like that can kind of maybe like end the depression thing, and then I definitely have like a lot more questions. Okay. If that's chilling with you. Okay,
sounds good.
Remembered in your heart be carried on. Yours truly, Laser. I mean, if we're going to talk about depression for a while on this podcast, I had to give that special thanks to them. They're both dead. They both killed themselves. Like I said, life's very hard, and there's not enough, like, the people in charge have no fucking idea what they're talking about. This whole society needs to be community driven. People need to be aware. People need to be focused that, like, their life's not just them. And then I think everybody needs to stick their necks out more, way more than anybody is. And I think, but I had to read out that story. New topic. What do you know about child predators?
Well, it depends. What do you mean? That's such a broad question.
I just interviewed this person. Shout out Human. I will put his Instagram thing on the screen. He is this guy in Santa Maria, and he pretends to be a 13-year-old girl and messages these people from across the country. And they think they're talking to a 13-year-old girl when it's really not a 13-year-old girl. And he has these messages with them for months at a time, gains their trust. They're sending like videos of them like masturbating. They're like sending dick pics. They're sending all this crazy stuff, like literally crazy stuff. And he's sending these people to prison. Yeah. And like he's doing something dope for the community. I'm stoked he came on this podcast. It's not out yet, but yeah, I mean,
how did you come across him?
I interviewed this guy named J. Riley 805. I referenced him a little earlier, and he gave him a shout out on the podcast. And then, like the next day, do you have Instagram at all?
I do.
He posted on his story, like, you know how you can like post something on your story? Mm-hmm. He was like, oh, just did a podcast on a Lasers flavor or whatever. We talked about you, and like tagged the guy in it.
Gotcha.
And then the guy like reposted it and then started following me or something like that. And then I want to say, I think I messaged him, and then he was just down to do it. And like, yeah, I mean, his page is like just literally just getting bigger and bigger and bigger. Yeah. The dope thing I like about him is the screenshots from these people, from the child predators that he puts on his story. It's something that I've never seen before. It's like very raw content, which I mean, I like. I don't like filtered shit. Like I want the rawness of it. I want to see like exactly what's going on. And he puts all these screenshots of these conversations. And the weird thing is, I notice all these grown men that are like fucking anywhere from like mid-20s to like 60-something messaging this 13-year-old girl. Yeah. They all talk the same. They all have shitty fucking grammar, and they all say babe. Yeah. Tell me, what do you know about child predators? And they're all very aggressive.
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's certain tactics that they all employ, because in order to, you know, sort of get children in a position that you can sexually abuse them as well as hopefully keep them quiet, you know, there's certain behaviors you have to engage in. And that's technically called grooming behavior. That's what we call it, you know, professionally or technically. But it's a major problem. There are a lot of people out there, and unfortunately, the internet and the dark web allows them to connect with each other and find ways around law enforcement, find ways to pass materials, redistribute materials. It's disturbing. I'm sure you've realized that from seeing some of those messages. Like, it's really, really disturbing.
Do you want to hear a message?
Sure.
So, my friend, he said, I'm with my cousin right now. Child predator says, a girl. My friend says, yeah. Predator says, can I eat her pussy? Friend says, she's 13. Predator again says, can I eat her pussy? And then friend says, I don't know. And then he says, send me a picture of you both. This is like one of like, I think I have like 20 screenshots from his shit that I just like show people, or I'll repost it on my story and I'll like tag him in it just because like the people that are like following me, for example, I want them to see what the fuck's going on in society, because I've never seen this before in my entire life. Really? I've seen Chris Hansen, To Catch a Predator, like who hasn't? But the thing is, that's a little filtered, it's a little scripted. Not saying he didn't do a great job and like put people away, but the thing is, this is something else. I've never seen this shit before. Yeah, you know what I mean?
It's disturbing.
Why do people want to do it? Like, why is there an attraction? Like, a 13-year-old girl doesn't like look as hot as somebody that would be like your age, like in your like 20s or 30s or 40s. You know what I mean? Like, it's
I think one of the most disturbing things to accept, and let me be crystal clear, does not make it acceptable, is that attraction is on a spectrum. And we know that in a lot of senses. And I do think there are some people that are legitimately attracted to children. That is their sexual attraction. Doesn't make it acceptable, doesn't mean they can ever act on it, but I do think that's one thing that is really hard for people to accept, to sort of think about it in that manner of like, if sexuality is really on a spectrum, then there are going to be people that fall on parts of that spectrum that don't seem, what's the word I'm looking for? That aren't accepted by society.
Yeah, why? Is there a solution for this?
No, that's what's so terrifying is, states have really, their solution has really been to try to frequently monitor them, as well as try to lock them away for really long periods of time. None of which has proven to be overly effective. So what we know about, things like Megan's Law, they all sound great in theory. This idea that you can look up if anyone's ever been convicted of a sex offense in your neighborhood or whatever it may be, but it's theater. It's not actually changing anything. And what you're pointing out is exact proof of that. Look at all these people that are just congregated online and sharing this information. So I don't know if anything can be done about it. I would love to hear, somebody's opinions about how, a realistic solution to it, other than continually trying to have people that go undercover and, try to catch them in the act so that they get arrested and it's at least one less person that's out there.
He was saying for every guy he catches, 5 more pop up.
Right?
It's it feels like everybody's a fucking predator.
Yeah.
It's
really brothers,
does.
It's dads, it's sons, it's people out there, and it's disproportionately male. I don't think there's any question about that. It is kind of scary to think about, who around you could possibly fit that bill and is just hiding it really well by being online.
There's also a giant thing with human trafficking. It's kind of in the same boat, these people meet up or whatever, and then you're fucking kidnapped and gone forever.
Yep.
Human trafficking is
really bad in Florida.
Scary.
Yeah.
Can you give me some information, please, on what you do? Forensic psychology.
Yeah.
That has to do with someone killing somebody?
No. So that is a common sort of idea. Really, forensic psychology is a pretty broad field. So you can do a lot of different things in it, but the best way, I think, to explain it is really just any intersection of the legal system and psychology. So, for example, you can be in the criminal side, you can be in the civil side, you can do personal injury stuff, child custody evaluations. So I am much more on the criminal side. So I'm a forensic evaluator at the state hospital, which means that for some of our patients at the hospital, I write reports based, they have a reason that they're there. So I write reports that go to the courts that address the reason they're at the hospital. It usually is related to whether they meet criteria to be released back to the community or not, or to go back to jail or prison. So that's primarily what I do at the state hospital. I do a broader range in private practice of, doing maybe not guilty by reason of insanity evaluations or competency to stand trial evaluations for juveniles. I do some psychological evaluations for police candidates, so individuals that are trying to go to the police academy, and psychological evaluations in California are a standard part of that process before they can proceed on. So I primarily work in assessment and evaluation where that intersection is between there's some sort of psychological evaluation that's needed for the court, for somebody that's involved in the court system. I do some evaluations for the Department of Social Services. Obviously, children and families can be involved in the legal system. And so, yeah, that's kind of what I do.
Are you, so Is it somebody that's in jail and you're interviewing them to see if they can go back into society?
Sometimes.
What are the crimes that they've done?
I mean, I've seen everything. I've seen everything from petty theft to, multiple homicides.
How is that up for debate, releasing somebody from multiple homicides? Like, you're saying, you might be good to go back out again?
Well, no, sometimes what I'm assessing is, whether they're competent to stand trial. So they're at the state hospital, they've been found incompetent to stand trial, and so they're at the hospital for competency restoration. So my reports will say they're ready to go back to county jail so that they can move on with their cases. So sometimes leaving the hospital doesn't necessarily mean, going to the community.
Okay.
If that makes sense. Some commitments are, granted, I've seen attempted murders on my caseload that the question is whether they're ready to go back to the community. But yeah, obviously if it's murder cases, they're probably in prison for most of their life, if not the rest of their life.
Give me an example where you're interviewing somebody and they pass the test, they can go out to society or they can go and be around a population in prison.
Yeah. So, for example, one of the commitments that I frequently do evaluations on, there's a bunch of criteria that the law has outlined, and essentially it's asking whether there's still a physical danger to others because of their mental illness. So they've already served their prison sentence and they have to start their parole in the state hospital. So the type of individual that I would say is ready to go back to the community would be the type of individual where the symptoms of their mental illness are in remission, meaning that they're well controlled, that's like medication compliant, treatment compliant, and has insight into their mental illness. They also usually have like good discharge plans, like somewhere to go, a good plan upon release to set them up for success. And they do remain on parole once they leave the hospital, but that would be the kind of person that, regardless of how they've presented in the past, would eventually be at a point that, I might recommend that they don't meet the criteria anymore.
And then when you give somebody a thumbs down, how does that conversation go about? Because you pay attention to body language. Yeah. Give me some insight. What goes on in these conversations where you're like, dude, this person is in extreme danger?
Yeah, well, they might still be having a lot of symptoms. So sometimes, I interviewed a patient the other day that was talking about how he still hears voices to hurt himself or hurt other people. So those types of symptoms, especially if they've led to crimes in the past, would be a huge red flag for me that somebody's not ready to go back to the community. I've had other patients who, are like, my meds don't work, they're bullshit, I'm not going to take my medications, which obviously would be a problem, right? Because then they're going to psychiatrically decompensate as soon as they get back to the community, which would not be safe for the community. So sometimes I tell them, sometimes I don't in my interviews. Usually the ones I'm saying need to stay at the hospital, I have to go to court and testify on. And so I'm in court and it's ultimately the judge's decision. Unless they have a jury trial, it would be the jury's decision. Most of these cases are, just bench trials and the judge is deciding. So luckily it's not just me, right? That may be my opinion, and that's really hard to be in court and testify in front of people sometimes because they feel like you're attacking them personally. But ultimately it is up to the judge whether they, what decision they make.
Does the judge mainly side with you? Or
I would say proportionally, I think that they do. I think most of the forensic evaluators at the state hospital are great at what they do and take a lot of care into really understanding the law. So I think that, most of the time the judges agree. But there are definitely cases in which they don't. They see the case differently, or, there may be some technical piece of the case which has to go a different way. But I'd say most of the time they do.
What's been the craziest thing that you've seen or like evaluated? Like, what's the craziest crime that you've like encountered through talking to these people?
I mean, so many of them. There's, been some really, really ill individuals that have killed family members, due to delusions. I remember one of my patients believed that his father was part of the Illuminati and was like plotting against him, and so he killed his father with a machete and then pulled out his organs as part of like a harvesting ritual, and it was just extremely gruesome. And he fervently believed, there was no changing his mind, of course, of that his reasoning was based in mental illness. So those cases are really, really tough, and they're also like really sad, right? That you can see how much mental illness can really impact people.
How does that conversation go down? Because off the bat, you probably don't think this person's fit for society.
Yeah.
Like they belong in jail or whatever.
Yeah, so usually those calls aren't for me to make, which is kind of nice. I usually have like very strict things I'm evaluating. But I usually approach those conversations very respectfully. I think that it's important any person in my role needs to be respectful that everyone is still a human being, and that, in order to do your job, the best approach is to be professional. And sometimes it's hard. You see some really gruesome crimes, or you see people that you're like, man, you did what? But I think my first approach is always to be respectful and open-minded and just really ask open questions. In order to get as much information as possible, find out as much as I can about their reasoning, their thoughts, their beliefs, their feelings, that kind of thing.
Have you heard of that thing? It's called like QAnon or something.
Yeah.
You've heard about that?
How has anyone not heard of it?
I just found out about it.
What?
I don't have any knowledge.
I heard about it early on, before it even became wrapped up with the election.
But people fucking kill people because of their QAnon beliefs or whatever. That's fucked up. That's crazy.
It's insane. It's scary. It terrifies me, the amount of conspiracy theories, and because it's all steeped in this really deep paranoia, hostility, distrust for others, and it also assumes that the whole world's in on it, that all these actors all over the world are in on this giant conspiracy, which is absurd, but it's really messing with people's heads. And that's terrifying to me, how much it's messing with people. Very logical, typically rational people. I don't know if you've seen some of the stories in the news about this father who killed his children based on some of those beliefs. That's heartbreaking that somebody would get so lost in those beliefs that they would harm their children.
I don't like it when religion kills people. Religion and beliefs kill people.
Yeah.
That's fucked.
Shouldn't it be the opposite, right? A religion shouldn't probably result in killing people.
I thought you meant if you study that type of stuff.
Oh, no.
Okay.
No. True religious beliefs, if you really think about a lot of the ideals, you would think it would be the opposite, that you wouldn't do things in the name of religion.
A thing that I forgot to bring up earlier is when I was watching TV, they do advertisements for medicine.
Yeah.
And then my friend was like, yo, in Europe or some shit, it's illegal to advertise medicine. And what actually is supposed to happen is the medicine that comes out, it gets reviewed by a board of doctors. Yeah. And then the doctors, the patient comes to the doctors, and then the doctors kind of fill it out, talk to the patient and say, hey, I heard about this thing, maybe we can try this for you.
Yeah.
But instead, it's in America, or I don't fucking know where, I guess everywhere besides Europe, I don't know. we go to the doctors and we're like, hey, like I saw this thing on the news.
Yeah.
Like I think it might help treat me. That's backwards.
Yeah.
That's so backwards.
The pharmaceutical industry is a huge problem in the United States. And there are certain disorders that need treatment with medications. There's no question about that. But the massive amount of money that people can make off of medications, the inability to, really make sure that whatever's being put forth for a particular disorder has been like thoroughly researched, those sorts of things, and the advertising. The fact that there's like a push to put certain medications over others, or that you have like medications that you can jack up the price on, which makes the people that need them be unable to afford them. Like, it's a crock of shit.
What were you expecting coming on this podcast?
I had no idea.
Okay.
I had no idea, which was kind of fun.
Yeah, heck yeah. I appreciate you, I guess you kind of took a chance and you were like, yo, I'm going to come do this podcast with this person I like barely even know.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like that's...
I could tell you were very passionate about it, and it was something that was really important to you. And so I knew that if it was something that was so important to you, couldn't be that. You know what? Like whatever it was or however it went, that you would at least put your passion into it. And I can always respect that.
The thing is, I can't stop doing this. This is for me, this is insanely fun.
Yeah.
You have no idea. I love doing this every single day.
Yeah.
I can literally do this every single day and just keep doing different things with it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's crazy. The amount of joy and happiness and just fun. You know? This is... Yeah, I mean, in a way, it's kind of like a show almost. You know what I mean?
That's
it's crazy.
awesome.
It's crazy.
Don't stop doing it.
So, wrapping things up, it's you being a psychologist. What would you say your specialty is? And what's a counselor?
Yeah. So a counselor or a therapist is usually somebody that has a master's. And primarily does, therapy in different types of settings. They can be in the community or whatnot. So I don't do much of that work anymore. That's definitely part of my training. I primarily just do evaluation at this point and assessments, and then refer out and try to provide people with helpful recommendations and then refer them out if they need further treatment.
And then... what is it if you're a psychologist and you're a doctor, it almost feels like you kind of have this one up on everybody else, right? You just stereotyping, does it it seems like you kind of know something that we don't know, maybe? What's your life like?
What's my life
like?
Yeah,
How do you think of society? Do you have friends and stuff?
Yeah, of course.
Okay.
Yeah, of course I do. I think a lot of people, I definitely think it's gotten better, but I think a lot of people don't really know themselves well. Don't have a lot of insight into their behavior, their emotions, or their thoughts. And I think that's the thing that I notice a little bit more is, compared to the average person, it's easier for me to recognize unhealthy behavior. It's easier for me to recognize, if somebody's got a certain way that they live their life that is, dysfunctional or maladaptive. I think I understand those constructs more than just the average person.
It's almost a lot of people do things that they don't even know they're doing.
Yeah.
There's so much subconscious behavior that happens.
Yes.
1000%.
Yeah.
It's do you even want to be doing this type shit? You know what I mean?
Yeah. Or do you even know?
Yeah.
Has anyone ever told you that you do this?
Yeah. And then why sometimes people on here they were or like are getting out of some sort of like mentally or physically abusive relationship.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And for me, it's so easy to say, fuck that person, cut them out of your life, block their number, never see them again. Like, it's so easy for me to just be like, oh dude, like don't surround yourself with anybody that's not dope. Like, if people are being like mean to you, or like I've said this probably like 4 times throughout like every single episode, but like, if people are making you feel bad when you're doing absolutely nothing wrong, fuck those people, because you're not doing anything wrong. Preach. Like, and like you feel like you're doing something wrong because of like their I guess manipulative behavior. Yeah. Why do some people stay, and I feel like it's usually like girls, but why do some people stay in an abusive relationship, and why are they like still like, oh my god, like I can't leave this person because I love them, or like they're my family member, or like no, like we used to be in love. Like why are they still why do people still engage with like a fucked up person? Yeah.
It happens obviously way more than it ever should. I think some of it sometimes has to do with, you know, those individuals not having healthy role models of what relationships are supposed to be like, or what are reasonable expectations. So if you have grown up in an environment where like domestic violence is normal, or like you watch your parent, you know, emotionally berate or physically, you know, hit your other parent, like that of course is going to normalize behavior that isn't acceptable. So I think that's obviously something that happens way more than we would ever like to acknowledge, even just the emotional abuse. I think sometimes too though, people, it's like this, especially like with emotional abuse, that they truly believe that they are nothing without this person. They've truly come to believe that like in their core. And so the idea of separating from that person is terrifying, and who they would be, would anyone ever love them? The loneliness and the fear that comes with that, I think, is so great that it feels easier in that moment to stay. Even though this situation is terrible and it hurts either emotionally or physically or both, that all of those questions, all of those fears, all of that lack of like self-confidence and self-esteem, image, self-worth, the payoff is to stay. It's a psychological like war.
You being a psychologist, do you ever see yourself in one of those situations, or are you so aware that you could never see yourself in one of those situations? Have you ever been in one of those situations?
I've never been in a situation that's been physically violent. I have seen mental health professionals be in those situations. It's almost like they creep up on them. And, you know, by the time you fall in love with somebody is when some of that stuff starts to come out. And so it gets a little bit, I think, harder to see. You start convincing yourself like, oh, but this person I knew at the beginning is the person I want to be with. How do we get back there? Or what am I doing that's like making this happen? Like, I must be forcing this to happen. So I've seen those things happen with very, very educated, knowledgeable people. I would say that the most that I've been in is probably getting into like a toxic relationship, or like allowing a relationship to continue once it's toxic. So I wouldn't say that I've been in an abusive situation, but I've definitely allowed myself to get to a position with another person in which, do you know what I mean? Like you need to stop talking. You need to walk away, move on with your lives. And it's just toxic. Like you're always fighting and bickering, but then it's like, I miss you. And like, you feel like you can't go on without them, and you come back together and then it's the same thing over and over. You're fighting and you don't work, but yet both people aren't moving on. And that's what I've been in. And like, I learned so much from ever being in that type of relationship, because I've realized how miserable it is. Ultimately, once you finally leave it, you're like, oh my God, I was so miserable. How did I not leave sooner?
When, like, Have you ever been in a relationship and because of your like psychology background, like do you notice when things are like starting to happen when they shouldn't be and you're like, oh, like actually like fuck this person type thing? Like
sometimes, yeah.
Okay.
Or pretty early on, sometimes like when I'm dating people, I can tell more so if like somebody has like really low self-esteem, or I can tell somebody's got really a lot of issues that they haven't dealt with. And that'll be the type of thing that for me, if they're not motivated to address those things on their own, like I don't want to be the mechanism to do that. I don't want to be, put in the position that I have to be their therapist or I have to be that person for them, because I want to be somebody's partner. And I don't want to take that into my relationships. And so, yeah, there have definitely been times when I've been dating that I've kind of probably like ended things pretty early because it felt like that's the path that it was headed down.
Do you feel like you have like a lot of answers to your own questions? Like do you think a lot and
yeah.
like do you figure out like you go throughout your day, your life, your week, whatever, when questions arise, do you know those answers to those questions? Because you're a psychologist and I guess you have an understanding of like the brain and the thought process, the subconscious, the conscious, and like how that all plays into each other?
Sometimes. So when I've gone through like hard times in my life, like, my mom dying or things like that, that's really where that kind of knowledge can really help me to put things into perspective about how it's impacting me, or maybe, as you deal with the trauma of losing somebody really important to you, of like understanding that on a cognitive level. But I think I just, when it's applying it to yourself, sometimes you really just have to spend the time and energy and effort to figure it out and really sort through those questions. And I think that's where I spend a lot of time just thinking about things. And granted, I've got a lot of great people around me that are also therapists and psychologists, and I have no shame in talking about whatever's, on my mind or going on with me, and really working through that stuff. And so I wouldn't say I always have the answers, because I think we're all complicated and life is complicated. Nobody has all the answers. But I do think I spend a lot of time really trying to understand myself and constantly try to be better. Of constantly thinking, if something makes me feel anxious, or if there's a certain way something, I feel like it could have gone better. I'm constantly wondering how I could have said things different, or how I could have approached a situation differently, or just been better, be nicer, be more kind, be more understanding and open.
Have you ever like called somebody like on the phone like crying and like you needed help or like answers for yourself? Or do you just
Yes, but not crying.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I wouldn't say I cry too often. But definitely I have some amazing best friends that I can definitely say like, hey, can I come over? Or, pick up the phone at any time and just really let it all out. And I think that if people don't have those people in their lives, they need to find them. Everyone needs those people.
I feel like I have a ton more questions for I'm like 3 weeks is gonna pass by and I'm gonna be like, fuck, why didn't I bring this up or like ask that? But last little thing I want to end on before you get going and like get ready for work and whatnot. And this like, okay, for real, at some point in your life, hopefully in the near future, I really beg you and I want you to take psychedelic mushrooms.
All right.
It's not, obviously don't take a lot, but I really think you will gain something from it. Okay. And like you will be happier, you will be a better person. It really because I've taken shrooms probably like 10 times, not a lot, right? That's not a fucking, for how much I'm hyping it up, you'd be like, oh, this fool's taking it like 50, 100 times.
Yeah.
No, like Like, and you can take it and like go function out in the real world. Like
Yeah.
you can definitely like eat a little bit of it.
Yeah.
You know, just like a cap and a stem. You've heard of that before?
Yeah.
Okay. And like go to school or
Yeah.
go to work or like go do things out in society,
Yeah.
and you will be like no one would even know you're on it, but that's not the point. The point is, while you're going through your life and your thing, whatever you're doing that day, this is why I fucking love them. You appreciate so much more. You understand how the world's working, and you understand how it's functioning within your brain, but not the brain that you use.
Yeah.
You're engaging deeper levels of your fucking, what is it called? Like the cerebral.
Yeah.
Shit's happening, shit's firing off in it. Like you're having synapses and whatnot, I guess. And like, you just like you see life,
Yeah.
and you see the plants and you see the trees waving at you. You're not like, the trees aren't fucking waving at you,
Yeah.
but you look up at a tree and like the leaves, they look they look a way you've never seen them before.
Yeah.
You can still drive a car, you can still go do all this shit if you know,
Yeah.
take a microdose, take a cap and a stem and
Yeah.
go function in the world. Or there's like the mushroom little pills, like you eat one and like you feel a little tingly, you feel like a little more like relaxed, and
Yeah.
you really like something happens to you that I promise that you've never experienced before.
Okay.
I promise you,
I believe
you have
you.
never experienced it before, and you will really be more like you will appreciate that moment. Because it probably lasts like, I don't know, like a little bit, maybe lasts like an hour.
Yeah.
Like it's nothing like,
Yeah.
have you been really fucked up on like edibles before?
Yeah.
Okay.
That shit can last a while.
Yeah, no, like if you take a little bit of psychedelic mushrooms,
Yeah.
it's nothing too crazy that you
Okay.
can't handle. Yeah, that's pretty much everything that I wanted to say or bring
Okay.
up. Again, I appreciate you coming on.
Of
1000%.
Thank you for having me.
It like
I'm honored that you even were that interested to have me, so thank you.
you're you're a member of society.
Yeah.
And like you seem dope, you're grinding,
Thank you.
you're hustling, you're doing your thing, your passion, like you're also making money. Like
Yeah.
had to give you an invite. I appreciate you coming on.
Yeah.
Anything you want to say to whoever's listening?
No, just reach out to those around you. Like you said, I want to bring it back to your points about depression. You never know what people are going through. So reach out, even just to say hi. You're thinking about people. People really need that right now.
Okay, yeah, thank you guys for watching.
Yeah.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah.
What do you think?
It's